Today on the show, we are talking about the state of the real estate market. So don't go anywhere because real estate gold starts right now. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Real Estate Gold. I'm your host, John Sane,
And I'm Michael McCray.
Here with the one and only Micah McCray, principal broker of the McCray Real Estate Group. So you can probably tell that we've moved our set location, so we've kind of had to downsize and move our offices, and we've not really set up a location for this show yet, so we're winging it today. So today we wanted to dedicate this show to the current real estate market, and because that's one of the questions we begin asked a lot about is what is the state of the market, where do we think it's going to be going, and we've got a couple of issues that are kind of fighting against us. One is inflation. Another one is the elections. And the last one is the mortgage rates. So you want to kind of...
Well, in our area, and this is our area specifically, but holidays typically play a part in our area. Albeit that may not be everywhere, but the other three do play a major part in all the other areas that we're going to be talking about. So
let's start, since elections are now.
Yeah.
Let's kind of start there.
So usually election periods, it's where people have a lot of uncertainty where the country's going, what direction it's going. And it doesn't really matter whether your political affiliation is either Democratic or Republican or neutral. We typically see this across the board in all states, in all areas. I mean, because people just, doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on or whether you're standing on the fence. If you don't know where it's going, people don't typically start injecting a lot of money into anything unless there's just an absolute need to do so. So this sometimes does cause slowdown in our market. Will stop people from listing their homes or stop some people from buying or just waiting till after the elections to sort of see where the market, in their opinion, is going to be going.
And we're going to do a full market report a little later to kind of show you where the numbers actually are as far as real estate goes. But yeah, I mean, it's really about just elections cause uncertainty. And so, I mean, you can even look at the stock market. During an election cycle, the stock market usually crashes because, investors are not going to put their money into the stocks because they don't know what's going to happen. And it's really just more about uncertainty. The next one, and the main one that really affects real estate, is the interest rates. So the interest rates are sitting about 7% now. And that's really kind of caused some, issues with buyers being able to get approved for loans and being able to get the money that they need to buy some of the houses.
The reason that, even though it does cause a problem as far as like how much you could have spent 6 months ago or a year ago or whatever, we've gotten used to these really overly low rates, really. I mean, everybody's just gotten used to it. And now we're actually spoiled to buy these homes at like 2-3%, and people scoff at 7%. Whereas like in 2007, 2008, I bought a piece of commercial property at 7%, and it is, unfortunately, I even considered that normal back then, but even previous before that, you've got all these different periods of time where interest rates have been much higher than what we've been used to, and we've just gotten so spoiled to having these low rates that people are now worried because we've got 7% interest rates and so on and so forth. But the thing is, interest rates don't typically drop really, really low and we're going back into normalcy. Um, it may be overly inflated right at the second. It may eventually come back down to like maybe 5-6%. But realistically, I don't see it coming down anytime soon. So anybody that's on the fence of waiting just because of the interest rates, you're not really going to do any better. In fact, it could probably get worse as far as your interest rates go. So, unless you're willing to wait for a long period of time just to try to catch that moment that may or may not happen, you're better to act now than you are later because you're guessing on what's going to happen in the future, unfortunately.
So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to continue this discussion.
In Tennessee, the seasons come and go. But our season never ends. To be the best, it takes an entire team working together for a common goal. The McRae Real Estate Group has a mission of changing the real estate industry. We value our clients and believe in serving with humble integrity. We are data-driven and use science to influence our decision-making. Northeast Tennessee is our home, and home starts with us.
So today on the show, we're talking all about the state of the real estate market. And we were kind of mentioning the interest rates. Well, one of the things that has really changed the real estate market is we had an influx of out-of-state buyers come in that were paying cash. So you had a lot of cash buyers. And if you go back and watch some of our other videos on the buying process, one of the significant things about cash buyers is that they typically don't go through an appraisal. So we've had these influx of cash buyers come in, and they've gotten into bidding wars, which has really jacked the prices of your homes up. So, 3 years ago, the average home price around here was around $150,000. That was our average sale. And we'll look at some numbers here in a minute, but, that price has significantly gone up. It is starting to slowly trickle back down. So we're kind of starting to see this. We're in this unique period of real estate time where we had this huge influx come up, and now it's starting to kind of trickle back down to, I guess you could say, normalcy.
Yeah. In our pre-COVID time frame, I think our average price is around 180, 190, something like that. And I don't know what our numbers are right now, but our previous month's numbers, I think, were what, 290, 297, something like that.
Yeah, I think about the highest I saw was 3 something.
Yeah,
$300,000.
So we're almost double what we were 3 years ago. And a lot of that is because of the cash buyers, and a lot of it is because of the injection of people from out of state that were, I'm going to say, unnaturally forced out of their areas due to whatever their reasons were, right? The way things were handled with COVID, the way the area was just trying to force certain things or whatever that they didn't like that made them want to move. Maybe even jobs because of the COVID restrictions on jobs and stuff like that. So maybe a lot of people had the ability to pick up and go. Well, they had, in some areas, you've got somewhere like California and a lot of places that they can sell something for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and it'd be the same thing here for like 2. Well, all of a sudden you've got all these cash buyers that are willing. It's got all this extra cash that they can turn around and buy a house with, and not and obviously they can bid on it. They can go higher than a normal person from here would because they have this extra cash laying around.
Well, something else that's kind of interesting too is we're seeing a lot of buyers that moved away from the area because of a job, but with all the COVID, restrictions and
Yeah.
everything, a lot of these companies went virtual. So now that these people can work remote, they're starting to kind of move back to their original home.
Yeah.
So we're seeing some of that as well. But let's kind of switch gears and get into inflation. How has inflation kind of affected the real estate market?
Well, it's done a couple things. Obviously, inflation has caused the prices to rise as well, because when you're, for example, on a new construction, let's say and everybody's heard about the lumber prices and all that stuff from COVID and all that, but whenever you've got inflation and stuff like that, those things push the prices to build up or to build a house, for example. So obviously now what used to cost $200 will cost $300, for example. Those kind of price inflation, I'm going to say, for materials to build are going to jack up what people are willing to pay for a new house. And because of that, the people that wanted to buy a new house but maybe can't afford it now because it's jumped up so much, now they're going to go to the original construction or the previously built homes, and then they're going to go through and say, okay, well, it's cheaper for us to go buy the same square footage or maybe even buy a bigger one than what they could have with a new build for less money. Well, that brings more people into the older home market, and that creates more demand. And since there's not as much supply, you cause those prices to go up. The thing is, even when we see corrections, let's say inflation gets put in check sometime soon, even when you see those kind of corrections, prices may go down a little bit, but unless you're living in an area like LA or Miami or New York or any of those bigger cities, Chicago, any of those cities, you're not going to see the amount of correction like you do here. Because we may see 10, 15, maybe even 20% in a really bad case. We're not going to see those kind of corrections, and therefore our prices will unfortunately only drop so far. We're never going to see pre-COVID prices, in my opinion, again.
Yeah, and of course, you mentioned some of the building materials. If you go down towards Knoxville, it seems like there's a new house being built on every street corner.
Yep.
And one of the issues, because I've got a stepbrother that's actually building their house. They're in the process of building their house, and a lot of the materials that they're needing to build at home, like windows, for example, they can't find them. It's because you've got all across the country, there's just a mass influx where everything was shut down and they couldn't get supplies. That now that they can, there's just a mass influx of everybody kind of building all at one time, which is put stress on the entire system, and you're still having a really hard time getting certain materials. I just had the siding replaced on my house, and it took 4 or 5 months before we could actually get that completed because there was such a supply shortage and backlogs of other people that are trying to get siding on their homes. And so that's where inflation has kind of really hit hard on the real estate side of things.
Yeah, and not to mention like what you paid for it 4 or 5 months ago. Imagine if you had to pay a difference now compared to what it was 4 or 5 months ago. Who knows what you'd be paying right now? You may have gotten pretty lucky to locked it in back then versus the way it would be now or even a month from now. Inflation, you're always going to have some form of inflation in a country. Obviously, I want to think the average is a little over 2% or something like that, maybe 3%, something like that. But it's a really low number, and that's over the course of a year. now we're doubling that, you know, in some cases monthly. Um, so when you look at the kind of inflation that we're having, we need to get it back in check, and we need to get back down to normal where you do have a certain amount of inflation over the course of a year, you know, somewhere around 3%. And then you're going to have the appreciation of your house and all that other stuff. So people that are worried about inflation and their housing prices, you know, not being able to, or they're going to wait because they want to see if prices come back down or whatever. They want to pay for a house that's, you know, this expensive right now. You know, those kind of things. If you, what you're looking for is based off of what it costs right this second, you're going to price yourself out again next year too, and it's going to keep going. We're always going to have some form of an appreciation rate and inflation rate. That never goes away. We're going through record numbers right now, but at best, all they could do is slow it down. They're not going to be able to stop it and put it in reverse. So people that are looking for market corrections, things like that, yeah, we're going to eventually have them here, but it's not going to be that crazy amount that you're thinking that you may be able to save. And unless you're going to be in that house for 1 year, maybe 2 years, then it's not going to matter anyway. If you're planning on being there for 10, 15 years, the market's going to correct itself probably by the time you sell anyway. So you're not going to have missed out on any money.
So let's go ahead and take a look at the current market report. So the first metric we'll look at is the absorption rate. So our current absorption rate in October was 1.71 months. So to kind of give you some perspective, you know, normally, you know, I guess 3 years ago, so kind of basing that as our normal rate, we want to usually see around 3 months worth of inventory. So that 1.71 months tells us that it is starting to go up because, I mean, we were down below 1 month of inventory.
Yeah.
But that still kind of indicates that we're still a little bit short on inventory right now.
At least for our area. Now, you may go somewhere like Knoxville in our area, for example. Knoxville may not have that kind of an absorption rate. You know,
correct.
Gatlinburg may be the same way, or Sevierville in general. Nashville, probably not going to see a 3 month inventory anywhere in Nashville because their growth rate is just so high. LA, those kind of places, you're not going to see that kind of number except for maybe in certain neighborhoods. But of an overall area, you're probably not going to see those kind of numbers. For ours, it was normal to have around 3 months.
And just to kind of give you an idea, so the areas that I've pulled these numbers from, our MLS basically covers pretty much Greene County, east, all the way up into,
well, technically Virginia.
Yeah. And I guess it goes almost into Abingdon. Is that kind of where it kind of ends? So basically, Greene County all the way into past Bristol, Virginia, up into Abingdon, Virginia. So the next one is days on market. So our average days on market in October was 60 days. So that kind of tells us that, you know, that's moving pretty quick. So
Still pretty
properties are not staying on the market very long. The next one is the list ratio. And our sold to list ratio is currently 95.9%. So that's actually kind of getting a little bit closer to a normal list to sell ratio.
Yeah, I think pre-COVID, I think we were around 94%.
Yeah, it was around 94, 95%. So it's kind of trickled back down. And we're also seeing, so we're going to take a look at the average price.
Yeah.
So our average price in October was $272,979. So that was our average sales price. So, you know, it's where it was, I think the month before, it was closer to that 300,000. So it's kind of started to slowly trickle back down. to some form of, I guess you could say, normalcy. So that is our market report. Do you have any final thoughts on kind of the current state that we're in?
If you're looking to basically wait, I mean, I can sort of understand from the election standpoint, but if you're looking to wait because of inflation, because of appreciation or price cost or pricing for houses, or maybe even interest rates, um, two things will always happen. Your prices will always go up over time. Number two is interest rates bounce around. The good news is that where your house will usually go up in price over time. If you ever wanted to refinance, if let's say the market ever did come down to a better rate, you can always refinance into a different rate. You don't necessarily have to worry about the interest rate specifically unless it is pricing you out of what you absolutely need in a home. The You may have to lower like what you're looking for, like you may not be able to get that, swimming pool, or you may not be able to get a tennis court in your backyard. However, when you're looking for a home to meet your basic needs and things like that, if that's what you're looking for, maybe some wants, maybe you want to be in the county versus the city, or you want to be in the city versus the county, whatever that may be, keep those things in check. But remember that all the extras that you may have wanted, that 7% may be pricing you out of, those things that can be added later. Number one, if you have the space, or maybe you want to upgrade something later. However, if you need to be in a home, don't let fear from whatever the market's doing as far as like interest rates and appreciation and all that stuff, don't let that price you out of just buying a house, because it's never going to get better. Houses will always eventually go up. Interest rates bounce around all the time. So 7% may be today, but in 6 years it may be 5% or 4%. We don't know. So because we don't know where those things are going, it's better to act on what you've got the capability to do right now, not what may or may not happen in the future. So always react now versus later.
And one thing I would say too is that we didn't really mention it, but right now, one thing that really affects the real estate market is the holiday season. But if you notice, all of our data is basically telling us that there's still really low inventory. So if you've thought about selling your home, now is still an excellent time to put
Yep.
your home on the market. I know a lot of people worry about, the holidays and that sort of thing, but if you're still interested in selling your home, people are out there looking to buy a home right now.
And
And
we can do simultaneous closes. So like, where you may be selling your home and then you needing to buy a home, you can be in and out of a home the same day.
and another thing I was going to mention is that even with the holidays going on, there's ways that we can work around the holiday schedules. If you've got family coming in, we've got options that can meet the needs of selling your home and still, keeping
Keeping
the
up with
holidays
holidays.
somewhat
Normal.
sanity
Yeah.
in place. But so, don't let holidays affect
you.
your, state of the real estate.
Yeah, there's lots of time in between Thanksgiving and Christmas before you have to really worry about. You're not going to hit that time frame. You can work around those time frames, but you can still get something under contract. You can still have a closing in between. You can still. There's all kinds of ways to work it around holidays, having family come in, and all that stuff. So, if you're interested in it, feel free to reach out to us. We're glad to sit down with you and give you some of our pointers and tips on how we would work around them, to keep your sanity as much to a normalcy, during the holiday season as possible. Feel free to reach out to us if you ever want it.
And the other thing is, if you're a buyer, even with these high interest rates, we've partnered with several great lenders, and so they have all kinds of options available to you that
Yep.
we can get you in a home. So
There's lots of new programs that are out that are all the time. One of our lenders, I think he said he gets about a new program about every week. So who knows what you've got the capability to do unless you sit down and talk to somebody. So don't assume that you have to do just a conventional or an FHA loan. There's all kinds of programs out there. If you're interested in buying, also reach out to us. We'll get you in touch with some of the lenders that we use, and hopefully we can help you get into whatever your dream home is or whatever your situation may be.
And that'll do our show today. So tune in next month, and we may have make some few changes next month. I'm not sure yet, but we'll catch you next time.
Have a good one.